Welcome to Last Men Standing. It's our big week one preview show. We got comments rolling in already from you guys. I can feel the excitement from our audience already. We're going to talk week one of the NFL season. But first, Jason, we got a little bit of breaking news. Circa goes over the 15 million mark today. No overlay. We knew there wasn't going to be an overlay, but no overlay. It's gone. Now the big question is, how high does it go? Congratulations to Circa. What was your reaction when you heard that news? Over 15 million.
Dude, great to be with you. Appreciate it always. And when you just said congratulations to Circa, that was my reaction, right? I love seeing no overlay there, especially as we get to meet all the people sort of behind the contest and behind the sports book, because it is a juggernaut over there. I appreciate all you. There you are, Randy. Picks are live. I love all the comments coming in. We're really excited to be with you on this podcast. Tony's going to break down sort of what we're going to do for you here. But yeah, seeing it over 15 million, Tony, I think you got as good a chance as anyone to collect that 15 million this year. I'm jumping out of my skin.
This is the beauty of week one. We all feel like we have a chance, right? It's like when you draft your fantasy team. Everybody loves their fantasy roster before week one. Everybody loves their chances. So I'm stoked. I feel like I've got as good of a chance as anybody. And I'm just ready for the season, man. I'm very, very, very excited. We're going to get into a mailbag here in a minute because we got some questions from you guys. We're going to go through every single game on the week one slate from a survivor pool perspective, give you our insights, give you our thoughts of whether we're going to use them or not. But if you guys can do me a favor, hit the like button. If you're watching this on Twitter, hit the retweet button. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. And yeah, let's do this, man.
I love it. So for those of you novices who have maybe not been aware of a survivor contest or an NFL contest, right? You have to be in Vegas. You have to enter this contest. It's $1,000 at Circa. You got to pick just a winner every week, but you can't pick the same team twice. There you are, Gavin. Appreciate the love, baby. But so just sort of a simple breakdown for those of you novices out there. So I can't get enough of this. And what I'll say to you quickly, Tony, I've always done the Circa Million contest, picking 5 games against the spread. My brother Jason Anik and I did a show where we picked 5 games against the spread. So that was always the angle at which I looked at this league. I've never looked at week one the way I've looked at it this week. The survivor perspective is completely different. I would tell you, I've never looked less at the lines, at the gambling lines for NFL games in my life. Never looked more at money lines. Blown away as I talk to my brother and we try and map this thing out. I can't wait to get into all of it with you and talk to you from sort of your side of the sharp perspective. What, 3 top 40s? For you in this contest?
3 top 40s in Circa Survivor. Yep, in the last 4 years. I didn't do it first year, 2020.
Exactly. But we're going to get into all sorts of stuff. So best way probably is to get into the mailbag. And anyone, we appreciate you following us, messaging us, whatever it is. I think I got the first message here, Tone, from the mailbag.
First of all, Randy, real quick, at the bottom of the screen, does this resonate with you, Jason? Great show, guys. I can't stop thinking about Circa Survivor. That's week one. That's why I think a lot of people are here watching right now, our audience, because none of us can stop thinking about Circa Survivor. It's a bit of an obsession this time of year, you know?
Well, and Tony, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but last year, the Cincinnati Bengals, among other teams in week one, right? There was carnage in this contest early last season, right? So week one, any idea how many people in week 1 and 2 were gone from this thing last year?
Week one, 30-something% were out on the Bengals week one. I want to say it was 33%. People can fact check me on that. And by week 5, about 90% were gone by week 5. It was an insane start to the season. Be interested to see how week one plays out this year, man.
So we're going to go through. All right. Yeah. Play this. What do we got? Oh, this is showing us Derek Stevens. Shout out Derek Stevens surpassing 15 million. There's Benson there too.
He interviewed on his Twitter. He interviewed the guy who was the 15,000th entry, which is pretty cool. So that's the guy that made it hit 15 million.
Before I get to Sean Stewart's question in the mailbag, what do you think? Do you think it's going over 20? If I force you to guess without just on the spot?
It's a good question. Remember we had Benson on, I believe it was episode 2 of the season, and he said it was a small underdog. He said plus 125 or plus 120. We asked him to set the odds on that.
Yeah, that's right.
I know at the end of the year last year they were getting like $1 million a day. So I'm gonna put my guess at like 19.2 is just my guess right now of where it's gonna end up. We'll see.
That'll work. We'll find a way to split that up among some folks. So as we get into this mailbag, you can be as brief on if you want to answer some of these questions or as long-winded, because this particular question, right? We are going to get to these games in more detail. Joseph Kelly, only have to be in Vegas to enter. appreciate you clarifying, Joseph, as I should have, right? Yes, you only have to be there, and then you can use a proxy service, which we'll get into that a little bit later, to make your picks for you on a weekly basis. But the idea is you do need someone to have boots on the ground to put these picks in every week. All right. Yeah, what's up, baby? Big screen of Buffalo Wild Wings. There you go, Anthony.
Let's go.
Appreciate you. And I wonder if that's you wearing number 79. If it is, that's a whole different conversation. Let's go. All right.
Let's go.
So this mailbag message from Sean Stewart. Tony, this one's going to put you on a spot in a way that's kind of funky given this game. Hey, Jason, I have a question. Since I'm avoiding the Denver Broncos in the survivor pool, do you believe in Jacksonville beating Carolina in week 1? I know you'll get into it in more detail. What can you say on that? So out of the gate, Tone.
We're going to get into it in a lot more detail, but short answer, I think, is yes. I think the Jags are a trustworthy team. Of the teams that have point spreads below 5 points, there's a cluster of them, right? That is one of the games that I think is drawing a lot of attention. And we're going to get into projections later. Survivor Atlas did their projections this week, and you can see where the Jags rank just sort of on their predictions. And I think the Jaguars are going to be, maybe 4 or 5%. And I do think it's a good call. When you consider future value and all that you have to think about when you make a move, I do think the Jags are trustworthy. I'll tell you a little bit more why later.
And a lot of these guys talk about zigging when everybody else zags. So certainly the Broncos have been the biggest favorite on the board. Here and there, I know the Eagles are creeping, but Broncos have been the biggest favorite on the board. So I like our guy Sean absolutely trying to zig when everybody else could be zagging. Certainly going to be a lot of entries on the Broncos. Certainly a great chance they win that football game too. And I know we'll get to that. Tone. I
got a mailbag for you. Yeah, this one is from I Hate Spreads. First of all, what a great Twitter handle, by the way. I Hate Spreads. This is amazing for someone in Circa Survivor.
Exactly.
That's so perfect. He said, how does this make you feel in reference to the Eagles point spread going up to 9 at Circa? It has settled back down to 8, but it went all the way up to 9. He said, how does that make you feel about using Philly in Survivor? I know they're playing Thanksgiving, but what if there's a significant injury to Hurts or Saquon? They go down around that time. You got a safety net of having a rebuy option if they lose. So for those of you who are new to Circa Survivor, if you take anybody in that game, Dallas, Philly, or Kansas City and the Chargers, you can rebuy before Sunday if you lose. So that is a nice perk. It's a great perk to have, a get out of jail free card, if you will. However, you do have to be in Vegas or willing to get to Vegas really quickly before the Saturday deadline in order to take advantage of that. But I like the point in the question where he brings up Philly on Thanksgiving, because that is the number one reason why you wouldn't want to take Philly, because they are the biggest favorite on Thanksgiving right now. I'll tell you this. If you take Philly, you absolutely, positively better save yourself Kansas City and Washington for Thanksgiving and Christmas. If you have 2 of those 3 teams done by the time you get to the holidays, I think you're going to be in some real trouble. So I think it's an approach that's worth considering if you have multiple entries, and consider using that get out of jail free card, but be careful and have some backup plans for the holidays.
I absolutely can't wait to talk about these games, and the fact that the Philadelphia game is the first game out of the gate excites me very much. You're very tapped into injuries. Gosh, I wish I could be as tapped into injuries as you are, in the trenches as much as at the skill positions. So when he references injuries to an injury that could to Hurts or Barkley, I just want to quickly say, in my opinion, gosh, man, that stuff's fluky. It could happen in week 2 or week 14. But so how do you sort of handle that piece of that question? It's
a great question. First of all, Landon Dickerson from the Eagles, that's a name to keep an eye on for week 1. Big offensive lineman. Is he going to play or not? But it is impossible to accurately predict injuries in Circa Survivor, right? But we can do as best we can. We can make note of things like you and I did when we had Grant Cohn on our show a couple weeks ago, 49ers Insider, and we talked about how thin the 49ers are. Some teams are more adequately prepared for injuries than others. I think the Minnesota Vikings are a team that can handle a lot of injuries. They've got a lot of depth at a lot of positions. The San Francisco 49ers left tackle goes down, as we've already talked about on this show. They're in trouble. So forecasting some of those things, forecasting who are the injury-prone players. We all know about Tua's concussion situation. We all know about Matthew Stafford's bad back, right? Micah Parsons is now getting injections before games. Things like that are things to be aware of, because if you can get a Rams win, for instance, before Stafford goes down and then he gets hurt in week 4,
yes,
that changes everything. And that's a huge advantage for you moving forward in Survivor.
And that's a great point, right? The Stafford injury piques my interest more than maybe something where Hurts and Barkley, it would be more fluky, where Stafford's old, got something already lingering. Final mailbag, and this may come into discussion later when we talk about the marketplace, which blew my mind when I heard about this for a guy that plays against the spread. It's from the Twitter handle is at JQB1515, Thunder Up 15. Can't watch live this week. We know you'll check us out. Can't watch live this week. Will you address at what point in the Circa Survivor you think opportunities to monetize an entry become available? Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, first of all, technically speaking, you could monetize an entry right now. There's entries on the Survivor Sweat marketplace for over $1,000 right now, and the season hasn't started. I saw somebody had an entry for $2,700. Someone's trying to triple their money before week 1 even starts. I don't know how successful they're going to be. I don't know if someone's actually willing to pay that, but that's a quick answer to your question. You can do it whenever you want. Now, I think a lot of it's going to depend on how quickly this pool gets thinned out, right? If we have another carnage situation like we referenced earlier, where 90% of the pool is gone by week 5, then certainly at that point, your entry is worth $40,000, something like that. That's not a bad time to do it. But I think this is a really subjective question. We all have different bankrolls. We all have different risk tolerances. That is going to come into play as well.
And we'll get into that more, you can be sure, as the season goes on and even as this episode goes on. But can we get to the football games, please?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it. And Jason, I think there's some people out there who, I want to word this correctly. I don't want to say they've been lazy. They've been busy this summer and haven't been able to keep up with things like you and I have. And I think some people are like, crap, I'm behind on my homework. I need to watch Last Man Standing to give me some insight and see what I might be missing, make sure I don't have blind spots before I put my picks in with my proxy on Saturday. So I'm excited to be able to help share some of the stuff you and I have been studying all summer long.
You can be sure. You think it's an accident that, I mean, as soon as there was any chance of me getting in this seat to be able to talk to you every week, I gobbled it up right away. My goal is just to, I want to, as we talk about your entries, I want to be your girlfriend, not your podcast host, right? As we talk about your entries.
I love it, man. I can't wait, dude. All right.
Go ahead.
Dallas at Philadelphia, week 1. You see our little point spread at the bottom of the screen, -410 money line. There's been some line movement in this game, Jason. We saw it yesterday at Circa go all the way up to 9. There was a point where it was actually the highest lined game on the board over Denver, Tennessee. So let's keep an eye on this line movement as we get closer to the game tomorrow. That's going to be fascinating to watch. Some things to consider in this game. Like I said, the health of Landon Dickerson is absolutely huge. Last season, the Eagles beat the Cowboys both times they played them, 41-7 and 34-6. Dallas didn't have Dak Prescott in those games, but Jason, Dak Prescott's not worth 30 points on a spread. I think it's very relevant that Philly swept the floor with Dallas last season. And this Dallas offensive coordinator, who could only muster 13 points last year in 2 games, he's the Cowboys head coach. So I think a pick on Philly is a great pick. I would argue Philadelphia is the most likely team to win in week 1. But the reason not to use them in Circa Survivor is those holiday implications. So you got to make that decision out there, guys. I can't make that decision for you. I do think Philadelphia is a very, very, very safe bet week 1. They're better in the trenches. Way better offensive line, much better defensive line. Cowboys can't stop the tush push. There's going to be a lot of extra juice in that stadium, as you brought up, because the Eagles are going to be raising that banner. I love the Eagles' money line. I love the Eagles to win the game. But do you want to use them with the holiday implications? What are your thoughts on that?
The holiday implications are the fly in the ointment in this contest, right? It's it's not 18 weeks, it's 20 weeks. And as you map these contests out, and Survivor Atlas is as good a resource, and there it is, Mike Jones in the back. We appreciate you. This is what I want to be looking at right now. You got to save some of these teams, right? So when Tony and I look at that Thanksgiving slate, which is the 3 games on Thursday and the game on Black Friday, as we sit here today on September 3rd, Philadelphia hosting Chicago maybe feels like the best bet on the board there. Now, I can make an argument that the Chicago Bears may be a more oiled machine at that point in the season. Kansas City on the road, depending on what you think of Dallas, may, move the needle a little bit. But those other 2 division games, Green Bay at Detroit and Cincinnati at Baltimore. So for me, in some of my maps, you can be sure that Philadelphia, I was not considering using on any day other than Turkey Day. So do I like them this Thursday against Dallas? I do, right? And you can be sure my brother John, he and I are in the Survivor together. We have 4 entries. We'll get to that more. He likes Philly very much. But I just want to, I don't even want to say play devil's advocate, but I just want to paint a little bit of a picture on the Dallas side. You know me well enough to know that I'm a big intangible guy. I'm a big chemistry guy. I'm a big playing for one another guy, juice in the locker room guy. And while I don't believe that the Cowboys got better without Micah Parsons, I do believe potentially, forget the head coach, I believe the players galvanizing around one another. They got a great chance to put up a 30 burger potentially. I understand how good Philadelphia's defense is, but it is week 1. They did just win the Super Bowl. There are a couple, Milton Williams ain't walking through that door, among others. I'm not suggesting, I'm not running to the window to play Philadelphia -9, but this is one of those spots where it wouldn't totally shock me, because I do believe you have an opponent on the other side that has a great chance to put up points on offense and could perhaps hang on defense. So this game scares me more than some others, because in this contest, at least at this stage for me, I'm focused a little bit on teams I may fade rather than teams to bet on. And the Dallas Cowboys aren't yet out of the gate a team I'm necessarily looking to fade.
That's fair, Jason. And to your point about this being a scary game, I wrote an article over at Survivor Atlas, and I broke down the profiles of all the big favorites of 5 points or more who have lost since 2020 in week 1. And the division ones were dicier. Now, I know there's a whole bunch of research out there, Pool Genius, that does this research about how don't worry about taking big favorites who are in the division. And that is accurate. But week 1 since 2020, since we decreased these preseason games down to 3, these division big favorites on week 1 have been the diciest ones. So that's just something to keep. It's not a reason to take a team or not take a team, but it's a little piece of information. I look at this as sort of a constellation of data. And this little piece of information to keep in the back of your mind that recently division big favorites in week 1 have struggled. And this is a division big favorite. I will say this. If you're right, and I know you're not predicting a Cowboys upset, but you're saying that they could be tougher than we think. If that happens and Dallas does win this game, what a Survivor headline. All of a sudden, you've got, according to Survivor Atlas, we think about 9% of the pool is gone. Now, if you're not in Survivor, we won't know that 9% is gone, because we won't know till Saturday after the game. But we can project that 9% will be gone. So if you're not in Survivor yet, does that entice you to sign up knowing that 9% of the pool is gone and knocked out? It's essentially an overlay situation, if you will, right? At that point. So the ramifications of that would be huge. And then it's like, okay, 9% got knocked out. How many of those 9% actually decided to rebuy? It would be fascinating if Philly did go down on Thursday.
And quickly, again, for some of the beginners, if you're on Philadelphia Thursday night and they lose, Tony, and you're in Vegas, just quickly, what do you do?
Yeah, you go to the window and or to your proxy, and you sign up for a new entry. It is a new entry. You cannot just call your proxy from New York and say, hey, I lost. I want to do that rebuy thing. You actually have to go and get a new entry.
And you got to make a play on the Sunday games, right?
Yep.
And Philadelphia is still in your back pocket to use on Thanksgiving.
Good point. Very good point. Very good point. It is a new entry, so you do still have Philadelphia. Good call. Now, some people, I don't recommend this year, but you could also do, I'm going to take Philly and the Cowboys and guarantee yourself advancing. If you got deep pockets and $1,000 isn't anything to you, you can guarantee that you'll have life going into Sunday. Again, don't recommend it because of the holiday implications, etc. But it is a play that's been used in the past.
And we'll get to some selections later, but I will say, no matter, I gave a little Cowboys talk. Sirianni's 4-0 on opening day. You can be sure I believe the Eagles will handle their business raising the banner. But in an odd way, Tony, I feel as though if Micah Parsons was there, I might like Philly more, as crazy as that sounds, because I feel like Dallas's shot to win this game is sort of that shot in the dark because the injection of randomness of this sort of Micah Parsons situation. But I digress.
Yeah, these are men in the locker room. And if I'm the Cowboys coach, the way that I'm going to motivate them is everybody's saying we can't win without Micah. Nobody's talking about Kenny Clark that we just traded for.
Bingo.
And I'd use that as motivation, almost locker room material, if you will, in week 1. So it's an interesting angle. I like that, Jason.
So we moved to Friday night, Sao Paulo, Brazil on YouTube. Kansas City Chiefs versus the Los Angeles Chargers. And we will say, Tony, this show will bounce around here and there. Most of it's going to be from a Survivor standpoint. So some games we'll have more to discuss than others. Some games in Survivor, right? I don't know how much time we're going to talk about Buffalo, Baltimore game of the week, Sunday night. I don't know how many entries will be on either side of that game. But Friday night, Chiefs, Chargers. Talk to me.
Chiefs, Chargers, Friday night. Jason, I have zero interest in the Chiefs in this spot because they play on Thanksgiving. They play on Christmas. I'd be shocked if there was double digits on the Chiefs. Although maybe with a pool that large, maybe we'll see like 11 or 12. But this should be one of the lowest selected teams of the week. I had a moment earlier in the week where I was deeply considering the Chargers and then doing the whole rebuy thing if they lose. Because I think the Chargers are live in this game. I've got to bet myself on Chargers plus 3.5. I think they're going to be more competitive than people think. I think there is a chance that the Chiefs come out with a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover. And the Chargers don't have a lot of future value. There's not a lot of great spots to use the Chargers later in the season. They have no holiday games. So I'm thinking, hey, I'll be on a bit of an island with the Chargers. I'm not going to need the Chargers late in the season. I'm going to feel like a king if I can get to week 2 using the Chargers in week 1. But the more that I've thought about it, I've gone back and forth. I'm like, I'll also feel like a dummy if the Chargers lose. And I'll be like, what the hell? That's just where you brought up outsmarting yourself and overthinking things. The Chargers move might be an overthinking thing type situation. And I'm gonna keep myself in check there.
Especially for a 49ers fan that doesn't need to lose week 1 to Mahomes on any entry, right? I mean, like, you just don't need that in your life. But I do think that's call. I think that's a pick 'em game. You know, my brother John.
Someone's going to do it. Someone's going to take Chargers. I promise you. A handful of people will.
I guarantee it. I think it's a pick. I agree. My brother John keeps talking about Mahomes is going to be out for blood, and I believe the Chiefs are certainly a championship team. I'm not running to the window to bet on the Chiefs. I like the Chargers plus the 3 as well. I got nothing else on that game as we move forward.
Yeah, let's do a little break here for Survivor Sweat. This show is brought to you by Survivor Sweat, of course. We love them on this show. If you're in Circa Survivor, you have to go to the marketplace at survivorsweat.com. You can shop for entries that other people have registered or sell a percentage of your entry. Get knocked out early and suffering from FOMO? Head over to survivorsweat.com today and see which entries are available for sale. So real quick, Jason, on the subject of Survivor Sweat, before we move on to the Sunday game. I want to tell, I don't know how much we've talked about this in the prior shows. I think we've hinted at it, but Jason and I went ourselves over to the Survivor Sweat marketplace, and Jason's got an entry. So Jason essentially now has 4.5 entries, if you will. We are going to share some of this entry with anybody else that wants to buy it in the marketplace. It's not in the marketplace right now. The entry name is Champ, CHAMP. And later in the season, if we're still alive, if we can nurture this thing, if we can nurture it, you guys can buy a piece of it. And how cool would it? I don't want to sound like a salesman here because we could also lose in week 3, right? But how freaking cool would it be if we could all win together on this show, and all of our badass listeners who enjoy this show together, this awesome community that we've built, we are on this same entry and we take it to the end and can celebrate together week 18. That would be pretty cool.
Well, and if we're manifesting anything, the team entry name is Champ. Zach McConnell, fly up Friday to get my 2 entries in. Let's go, Zach. So you know that 15 million is already going up thanks to Zach McConnell. But then the name of the entry is Champ. So I got this entry, but you can be sure I'm bringing my guy Tony in. So yeah, I can't wait to see who sort of joins us on this ride. It is fascinating, and we'll talk more about a lot of our entries and stuff. But I have some entries. Tony has some entries, but this one is kind of the last men standing entry. And you can be sure nothing would give us greater pleasure, right? We're going to break down those glass walls of Veasan in the Circa Sportsbook if we win this thing with Champ. I mean, we're going to run the whole place. By the way, speaking of run the whole place, and follow at Last Men Pod, Twitter and Instagram. We should be at Stadium Swim going live a week from today. Is that accurate, Tony?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me, Jason. So every week we do this show Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, time slot that we're in right now, of course. Next week, it's going to be a little different. We're going to go live at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. And so help me out here. That would be 1:30 p.m. Eastern time from Stadium Swim, from the cabanas over there. So it's going to be a great show. We're going to be right in the belly of the beast, if you will. I can't wait. And remember that Earl Campbell jersey that we unboxed? From episode 2 this season, that beautiful, I wish I had it next to me right now. We are going to be giving that jersey away. So come by. If you happen to be in Nevada, come by. We're going to have a little bowl on our desk in the cabana. Take a little piece of paper, put your name on there, put it in the bowl, and then we're going to draw it out. And someone in Vegas, this is the week 2 show, a week from today, is going to win that lovely Earl Campbell jersey.
I love it. A signed Earl Campbell jersey. We'll have a little bucket. We'll also have a bucket of Tony's snacks, some vegan snacks there if you want to dabble in some of the stuff that Tony likes to dabble in. But I have to say, as we move into these 1 o'clock games, right, we will be talking about this Survivor Sweat marketplace as it goes on. But as we move into the 1 o'clock games, week 1 has never looked like this for me. I'm used to doing these extensive NFL previews, previewing each game, looking at every game against the spread. Now, my brother John and I do have one entry in the million contest, picking 5 games against the spread, but that's what we've always done. So I've never looked at this from a Survivor standpoint. Tony and I did work together last season. You know, at one point he gave out Chiefs minus 410. They're minus 8 in the game. They don't cover. I'm curious why he's giving out a money line of minus 410 as he's starting to monetize everything in the Survivor. So I'm very happy to sort of approach the NFL this week. And in one way, I've done more research approaching week 1 than ever and less in the same way. It's a totally different type of preparation, you know?
It is. And for people that watch the documentary, The Quest for 14.2 million last year, there were some very sharp people in there, people in the betting community, names that you know, who are saying, I'm a professional bettor. I make money doing this, and I haven't made it past week 6 or whatever it was, you know? So it is a very different skill set, I'd say, than picking games against the spread for certain.
I love it. So as we go through these games, you know, and oftentimes Tony and I have done a lot of work. I might look at certain reasons why I might pick a team, right? Might give certain statistical breakdowns for different things, but Survivor feels different, right? In a way, I've had conversations. My brother and I have 4 entries in the Survivor contest and then 1 in the million. And we're sort of on 4, and then I got this other one with Last Men Standing. And so for those 4 entries, I have a real good feel for what I want to do with those 4 entries. My research doesn't change much of it necessarily. You know what I mean? When I take in noise, it might change some. So Tampa Bay, Atlanta. I'll start out by saying 2.5 point spread. I've seen it move a little bit. I'm not touching this game in Survivor. If this game was in Tampa Bay, I would be strongly considering Tampa Bay as one of my plays in Survivor. I know that's neither here nor there. I just ultimately probably lean Tampa in this game. I'm not looking to play a road team week 1. I think there are great spots to play Tampa Bay later in the season. Atlanta is an enormous wild card for me. I don't really believe in Michael Penix Jr. So ultimately for me, maybe lean Tampa in the game, but this is a stay away from a Survivor standpoint for me across the board.
Yeah, I would agree. It's also a stay away from me. A lot of injuries to keep an eye on this one, first of all. So the Falcons lose their right tackle, Caleb McGarry, who's really good. And Michael Penix is a left-handed quarterback. So that's his blindside tackle. That's the equivalent of a left tackle on another team, right? So he goes down. Tristan Wirfs, the Bucs tackle, is out. I think the Bucs depth on the offensive line is a little bit more prepared to handle an injury like this than the Falcons. Bucs are also going to be without Chris Godwin. We know that. Cade Otton, he's been practicing recently, Bucs starting tight end. So a lot of injuries to keep an eye on. But besides your hesitancy about the Bucs in this game, let me give you another reason to not use them this week. Future value purposes.
Yeah.
So from week 13 on, this is who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play from week 13 on. Tell me this isn't going to be a team that you want to save in your pocket. They play the Cardinals, the Saints, and Falcons all at home, and then Panthers, Dolphins, Panthers. I'm going to say that again. Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, Panthers. That's a team that gives you a lot of flexibility later in the season and is going to have Chris Godwin back at that point and is going to have Tristan Wirfs back at that point. So I think the smart move here is to save the Bucs. And keep in mind, the Falcons beat the Bucs twice last year. A lot of people think the Bucs were a better team than the Falcons last year. They probably were, but the Falcons beat the Bucs twice last year. And for people who like the emotional angles, I know there's some, handicappers out there who are going to roll their eyes and say, look at the numbers, not the emotions. I'm just going to throw this out there. Raheem Morris was fired by the Bucs in 2012. He's the Falcons coach, and he kicked the Bucs ass in 2 games as an underdog last season. And I think he's going to, NFL coaches are preparing for games 100% anyways, right? How can they prepare 110%? But these guys got a motivational angle. This is the team that fired him. He kicked their ass twice last year. Makes the Falcons a little scary for me.
Very well put. I couldn't agree more. And anyone who caught Bill Belichick's debut as a head football coach, they looked like world beaters on the first drive, getting up 7-0. And then TCU puts up 41 straight points. Week one sometimes can feel like the beginning of a game to me, right? That week one is kind of like the first quarter. Like I could see, I've been in that Atlanta Falcons building. I love that building. It wouldn't shock me if Tampa Bay has a much better season, but Atlanta finds a way to win week one and things sort of, I'm very excited to talk about week two because I think week one, there's such a wild card component to a lot of these games.
Yeah. Week two is fascinating, by the way. I'm glad you sort of alluded to that because there is a lot to discuss there.
As we move on, may I move on to Cincinnati, Cleveland?
Let's do it, dude. Let's do it for sure. And this is a big one. A lot of people are eyeing this
huge
game.
One.
This is a massive one for sure.
I'm almost afraid to talk to you about this one. I'm going to give you, I have one thing in my notes for this game, and it's a note for myself, and it says, tune out the noise. And I say that to myself from a survivor perspective. So I guess if I may, I'll just tell you quickly about this game for me. The Bengals lost in week one to the Patriots last year. That game, we all know the story behind that game. I understand you and many other sharp people believe that the Bengals defense could be worse than it was last year. I don't think it's going to be worse than it was last year. I believe in Joe Burrow more than any quarterback in this league. You talked about Joe Burrow seeing more of the field in the preseason. Perhaps I think it is the Bengals are acutely aware of what they need to do to wake up Monday 1-0, and I think they will. The Browns are a team I'm looking to fade. Joe Flacco, to me, is not 2 years ago Magic Browns. So to me, I think the Bengals find a way to get to 1-0, and week one can be funky. So I will tell you right now, in my 4 entries, if my brother doesn't want any of them on the Bengals, I might fly up to Connecticut and try to convince him to do so. I'm steadfast on the Bengals because I do believe they win week one, despite I do think there is some future value for them.
It's a fascinating team, Jason, because the Bengals boogeyman story in week one is well documented. It talked about it in the Circa Survivor documentary. And by the way, it's not just last season. Zach Taylor has struggled in week ones since he became a head coach, and everybody knows it. So there is an argument out there. If you're looking for EV, if you're looking for a team that not a lot of people are going to be on, but still has a high point spread, that going with the Bengals makes sense. Because if you were in Survivor last season, Jason, and you were one of those 33% who went out on the Bengals, do you know how hard it is to click that button again on the Bengals this season? There's trauma involved. There's literal trauma involved. And I think there is an argument that could deflate the number. Less people will be on the Bengals than should be on the Bengals, considering where the point spread is. And that is a fantastic reason to take the Bengals. But let me give you some reasons not to take the Bengals. This Browns defensive line is really good, and not just Myles Garrett. It is the strength of their team. The Bengals offensive line is not good. I don't know if you saw the clips of them. They were getting laughed at on Twitter in the preseason. Joe Burrow was running around like a chicken with his head cut off while the offensive linemen were standing there and raising their hands up in the air. So you got a strength versus weakness type situation, which could potentially come back and bite the Bengals. But there's another reason not to take the Bengals. Week 17. I know it sounds a little funny to talk this far in the future, but week 17, there's no games with a point spread over 4 points. The Bengals are one of the options in week 17. They play the Cardinals in Cincy, probably a cold weather game, right? So now if you're out there, I'm going to monetize my entry. I'm going to sell it on Thanksgiving, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not worried about week 17. Okay. If you want to win this thing, that could potentially be a winning move where other people are having to trust Tennessee against New Orleans week 17, and you're feeling a little better about Cincinnati week 17 against Arizona. So I would argue, even if you think the Bengals are going to win week one, there are a lot of reasons not to use the Bengals in week one.
Great point. And what I'll say to that, right? You have said ignore week 17 and 18, right? I'm trying to learn from my guy, Tony. And as I try to map these things out, I'm like, oh, thank God. Tony told me to ignore week 17 and 18. This is madness, right? So I'm just messing with you a little bit there. But your point is very well taken that the Bengals, I would bet my life they're going to be playing for something in week 17, right? Even if they have a great season, Lamar Jackson ain't going nowhere. So I think they're going to be playing for something. I think it's a great point. I agree with you.
So one of your four, is that any chance if your brother's on board, if you like it, you might go more than one on the Bengals?
Yes.
Okay.
And the
you like it that
reason
much.
being the point, well, and to me, it's ironically become a situation where maybe I can zig when others are zagging on the
Sure.
Bengals. And for me, a lot of it's a play on Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? Like Joe Burrow, you're going to wake up Monday losing to Joe Flacco, And I know it's more complicated than that.
Yeah. Let me read you a tweet real quick. This is from Cleve TA. For people who don't know him, Cleve is highly respected in the analytics community, in the sports betting analytics community. So he says, Joe Burrow versus the Browns defense in his career. He has not generated an EPA in a game versus the Browns that was higher than 35th percentile for that season since 2020. Burrow has not produced a game above his season average since week 7 in 2020. Out of 59 regular season games since 2021, Burrow's games versus the Browns have ranked 35th, 40th, 48th, 51st, 57th, and 59th in EPA. Long story short, that's a nerdy way of saying, I say that nerdy, I say that affectionately. That's a nerdy way of saying that Joe Burrow has struggled against the Browns in his career.
Mightily. Joe Burrow's a big UFC fan. Maybe I should see if my brother can send him a direct message with this to try and light a little bit of fire. I hope Zach Taylor, this has crossed his wake, because this wouldn't be the worst thing for Joe Burrow to see. But yeah, very well taken. Very well taken.
And let me say this, Jason. Sorry, I'm going to jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
Those numbers go back to 2021. How relevant are those games he played against the Browns in 2021? Not necessarily, but Jim Schwartz has been the defensive coordinator in Cleveland for the last 2 years. Those are 4 games right there, right? And Joe Burrow hasn't done that well against Jim Schwartz defense in the last 4 years. So I think that is relevant. I think it's very, very interesting point to consider.
And I also think, you pointed to a spot very late in the year where the Bengals could be of use. But if the Bengals are the team that I believe them to be, I have tickets on them 21-1, 22.5-1 to win the Super Bowl because I like the value.
You love the Bengals. All right.
I also like the value when you look at some of these other teams, 6-7-1. I just, what am I really doing here? So I do believe Joe Burrow. I believe he got to the Super Bowl. I believe he will get back there at some point. So I think there are things that could change, but I do believe the Bengals are going to be in certain games as the schedule and injuries shake out where they are going to be a massive favorite at some point. So that wanting to their future value to me, regardless of how it may look on paper now, wanting to keep the Bengals as a team to be able to use appeals to me greatly as well. So I may hesitate for that reason too.
All right, one more thing, because we could probably talk about this game for an hour, but let me throw this out there. Let me push back a little bit. I'm not trying to convince you to get off the Bengals because I would feel terrible if I did and then you didn't take the Bengals.
No, I love it. This is what I want.
That's not my goal. What I want. But is there a chance that you have some Bengals bias because you like them so much for the season? And I'm going to use myself as an example here. Like, I like the Cardinals for the season. I've got a ticket on Jonathan Gannon to win Coach of the Year. I think the Cardinals are a playoff team, right? And then I start thinking about how many of my entries I'm going to go with the Cardinals. And I have to stop and be like, hold on. I'm in love with the Cardinals. Is this really about the matchup against the Saints week 1? Or is my bias creeping in? So is there a chance that your bias is creeping in a little bit on the Bengals?
Absolutely. I think I got a helmet here somewhere. We got a helmet there somewhere, a Jamar Chase helmet. No, the bias is creeping in.
Nice.
No, sorry. There's a new studio set up here. I don't know what's going on, but the bias is definitely there, 100%. And you can be sure 4 minutes in, I might be looking at that defensive front for Cleveland saying, what am I doing? Right. So, and also too, we sit here on a Wednesday, right? If I'm playing the Eagles tomorrow, I do need to submit all of my entries unless I'm right. Or do you not? I know that maybe
not all of them. That's a great question. In millions, you do. And since that's your background and that's what you're doing, that's what you've been doing, it would make sense that you would think that. But in Survivor, you just have to submit your Eagles or Cowboys entries by Thursday.
So there you go. So I do think by Sunday, maybe I will feel differently. But no, I mean, to me, you're right. The matchup component, I may leave that on the table a little bit and say, I believe in the Bengals this season. The Browns are a team. I believe they're absolutely going to be one of the worst in football. And to me, I just don't think they can keep up offensively, no matter how good the Browns defense may be. I think Burrow finds a way to put a few touchdowns on the board, and I just don't think Cleveland does. So, to me, it may sound like a simple handicap. Your points are well taken. Let's move on. Next game on the board.
Dolphins, Colts. I think this one is fascinating, Jason, because I've heard arguments on both sides. I've heard some people that I respect say they like the Dolphins. I've heard some people that I respect say they like the Colts. And I think this one is going to have, we talk about Survivor Atlas's projections. I think these two teams might surprise some people. I think there's going to be, not at like 5% or anything like that, but I think there's going to be a few more people on the Dolphins and Colts than people think. And I can see the arguments for both. For me, this is probably going to be a stay away game. There's the whole stat out there. Colts are 0-9-1 in their last week 1 games. Crazy stat, by the way. Like, that's insane that they haven't won a week 1 game in 10 years. I don't think it's relevant for, picking them or not in week 1 this season. Maybe the last 2 years is relevant. Shane Steichen, their head coach, he's 0-2 in his last 2 years. To me, that makes a lot more sense if you're going to base your Survivor pick off of a trend. Yeah. From a matchup perspective, I think both of these secondaries are really vulnerable. They're bad. And I could see a very high-scoring game. It's going to be interesting to see whose offense is clicking. I kind of like Miami from a matchup standpoint, but what is giving me pause is they've looked terrible so far in their joint practices this season. And there's a little bit of locker room drama. Maybe Tyreek Hill isn't happy. Yep. Maybe their head coach is in the hot seat. There's the whole, the Colts owner passed away. And they're going to do a big thing for him to start this game. You talked about the emotional appeal of raising the banner in Philadelphia. There's going to be a lot of emotion in that building for the Colts. And so I think I'm going to stay away, but I see the appeal because, like I said with the Chargers earlier, if you can get by with the Colts or Dolphins through week 1, you're going to be feeling great because there's not a lot of future value at all for those two teams moving forward. They could be teams that nobody would be surprised if they had losing records by the end of the season.
Yeah, it's certainly a layoff in Survivor for me, dog. I do think what you said about the past defenses makes me want to peek at Tua a little bit, but I'm on record. I like Daniel Jones more than a lot of people, and I don't like being in the business to bet against Jonathan Taylor. When he's healthy, he's really like in that top handful of backs in this league.
It's a good call. He's kind of forgotten, isn't he? It's like you automatically think Saquon, Bucky Irving's coming into the conversation. You got Bijan. Jonathan Taylor gets slept on a little bit. That's a good call.
And he really changes the game and sort of did in stretches down the stretch for that team. All right. Carolina Panthers at Jacksonville Jaguars. I can't wait to hear you talk about this game because I've heard you talk a lot about this game. And I think you have strong feelings on both of these teams. So I'll let you go. Survivor implications, seasonal. Talk to me.
Let me say this. This is one that at first I had no interest in because I like both of these teams. The more that I've dug into it, I'm really coming around to the Jaguars. And I think I'm probably going to have a couple of my 10 entries in my name on the Jaguars on Sunday. A couple things to know about the game. Jaguars left tackle Ikwonu didn't practice today, recovering from an appendectomy. That's huge. Whether he plays or not, the left tackle is a really freaking big deal. Both of these defenses are bad, Jason. Like, you could make an argument they're the 2 worst defenses in the league. They're both probably bottom 5. So I think that's going to be fascinating. I don't know if we have these numbers to pull up or not on the screen, but Baker Mayfield's numbers against the Panthers last season. Now, remember, Liam Cohen was Baker Mayfield's offensive coordinator. He played the Panthers twice last season. He knows how to carve up this defense. Baker Mayfield had 5 touchdowns and a ridiculous completion percentage, 350-something yards in Week 17 against the Panthers. Remember, this was the time where the Panthers were good, right? Where people are like, oh, the Panthers have turned things around. Liam Cohen carved up the Carolina Panthers. He knows how to do that. So I like his chances to do it in this game. Eric Armstead, he's like 6'5", I think, maybe even 6'6", defensive tackle. You got some big boys in the middle of that defensive line. You got a short quarterback here for Carolina and Bryce Young. I do think the Bryce Young hype has gone a little too far. Yes, he did look good his last few games last season, but the more I dug into the numbers, I think there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors there. I don't think, Bryce Young has turned things around that much. And one more thing I'll say here about the Panthers. Everybody wants to talk about the Panthers have turned a new leaf. You see what Bryce Young did at the second half of last year? Panthers are a new team. They finished the season 2-5, Jason.
Right.
Like, I get it. They played the Eagles tough. They played the Bucs tough. They almost beat the Chiefs. But you have to have that killer instinct. This isn't an ACS contest. You got to win the game. And the Panthers may not have what it takes to win this game. So the Liam Cohen factor, I love it. And one more thing here about the Jags. From Week 13 on, Tennessee, Indy, Jets, Denver will be tough. Indy, Tennessee. If the Jaguars are good, which remains to be seen, but if the Jacksonville Jaguars are a winning team, that's 5 of their last 6 games are going to be playable at the end of the season to use them. Tennessee, Indy, Jets, Denver, no, Indy, Tennessee. So good reason to save Jacksonville, which is why I'm not putting all my entries on Jacksonville. But something to think about.
This is why I wanted to host a show with you, and we got to talk about your entries too. But I wasn't considering Jacksonville, and now you can be sure I most certainly am for a lot of the reasons you laid out. Quickly, Carolina, we know they're banged up at receiver, right? Jalen Coker on injured reserve. They, Thielen's back in Minnesota, right? So Ted McMillan has their number 1 receiver. I don't love that receiving core. Ted McMillan, Xavier Leggett, David Moore as your top 3 receivers.
And Hunter Renfrow was cut, and then they just brought him back.
Yeah.
Because they had to out of desperateness. Yeah.
So as much as I do believe in Canales more than most and think maybe that Bryce Young might be okay in this league, I think that's a very good point, and I think I'm going to give them a look because they're just such a wild card to me. But your point's also well taken that if they are good, there could be some spots to use them later on.
And keep an eye on the weather. Let's see how hot and humid it is in Jacksonville. I mean, Carolina is also a pretty hot and humid place. It's not like it's a team coming from Minnesota or something, but wouldn't be surprised to see the Panthers players get a little more gassed in that game than the Jacksonville players who are a little more used to it.
All right, so moving on. Vegas Raiders at the New England Patriots. I'm a Patriots fan, for those of you who don't know, born and raised in the New England area. And what I'll just say here, if you recall, we were on Radio Row at Circa Sports a couple weeks back, and we met a guy from New England. What a great Boston accent he had, by the way. I'm forgetting his name. I apologize. He had a tremendous Patriots tattoo. But I don't know. We'll talk about how much you like to play on your own team, the 49ers, but I don't have much of an appetite. I mapped out some things. My brother was looking at some of my maps. He's like, where are the Patriots? I'm like, I don't know what to expect from this team. A lot of people like the Patriots. And this guy we met at Survivor, he's doing 3 entries, and he was bullish on the Patriots week 1. I'm not. I'm used to looking at teams. Used to looking at games with point spreads, right? So when I saw the 3 points for the Raiders, gobble it up, right? Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, familiarity with one another and some veterans. Max Crosby's always a problem on that side of the ball. And the Patriots still very young. Drake May, I think, just turned 23. They're super young. We're a really bad team last year. I understand it's literally like the other side of the coin with Mike Vrabel juxtaposed to Gerard Mayo. But that week 1 game, I'm not looking to play in any way, shape, or form. You and I have talked about these teams. I know you'll get in here. I expect the Raiders to be a little bit better than people think. I'm very bullish on the New England Patriots this season, but that doesn't mean I'm too. There we go. That's when we went to watch Mac Jones in Atlanta. That was a mistake. And I knew, by the way, Mac Jones rookie year that they were the worst 9-4 1 seed, the New England Patriots of all time. But anyway, this is a layoff for me. I lean taking the points with the Raiders here. Your thoughts?
One thing to consider, if you take the Patriots, there's not going to be a lot of people on them. So it's not quite an island, but it's a mini island, if you will. Yep. So it checks that box. I think the Patriots have sneaky future value later this season. If you believe the Patriots are good, let's just assume for the moment the Patriots are a 9-10 win team. Might be a stretch for some people, but if you believe that, they play Carolina. They play New Orleans. They play Tennessee. They play Cleveland. They play the Jets twice. They play Miami twice. And they play the Giants. You really want to burn New England week 1, guys? I get it. You want to be on an island. I get it. But that's a lot of future value moving forward. Now, if you do use the Patriots and you win, and the Patriots end up stinking this year, it's a great play. So maybe whether you decide if you're going to use the Patriots or not week 1 should be based off of how good you think the Patriots are going to be moving forward. It's almost, you'd think because you like the Patriots, you think they're a good team, that you should use them week 1, but you almost have to like twist your mind a little bit and be like, actually the better move if I like the Patriots is to save them.
Great point. I agree.
The other thing to keep an eye on for this game is Christian Gonzalez didn't practice today. Stud cornerback for the Patriots. If Christian Gonzalez plays, maybe I could put an entry on the Patriots. It'd be a little bit of a stretch. I do have one last entry that I'm really trying to figure out what I'm going to do with. Without Christian Gonzalez, I want nothing to do with it. What scares me about the Raiders, Jason, I think you covered this well, so I won't harp on it. But Pete Carroll, if you remember his time with Seattle, he had a bunch of no-name guys on defense that people hadn't heard of. And all of a sudden, they turned into the Legion of Boom. So I look at the Raiders defense right now, and I see a bunch of no-name guys. I see defensive linemen who, when I pull up Pro Football Focus and I look at their grades, outside of Max Crosby, they're terrible on paper, right? But then there's that little voice in the back of my mind that's like, yeah, but it's Pete Carroll. Maybe he knows what he's doing. Maybe he's identified some rookies. Maybe just like he did in Seattle. So that scares me. Revenge game for him. Something to consider. But I'm going to say this again about the Patriots and that sneaky future value. Weeks 6 through 8, Saints, Titans, Browns, back to back to back. You got to like having the Patriots still entering week 6, and then you've got some flexibility. Oh, no, I don't want to use them week 6. I'll use them week 7 instead. Then I can move this team over here. It affords you some flexibility and something to consider.
Appreciate y'all being with us, by the way, live Wednesday night, 7 Eastern, Last Men Standing. This will probably be a longer episode. Typically, we'll be with you for about an hour, but a lot to cover here in week 1. Tony, before we get to the next game, which is Arizona versus at New Orleans, a lot to talk about there. But I'm going to put you on the spot here. We haven't talked about your entries, right? And next year, like I said, I want to be your girlfriend. I want to be in bed with you in terms of these entries, right? So talk to us as to whatever extent you will. And I may poke you a little bit, but I'm on 4 entries, and then I got this Last Man Standing one in my name. But talk to me about your entries and how many it's going to take to pull this winner from this year.
Yesterday, I signed up at Westgate, by the way, for an entry in their $5,000 contest. But I know you're referring to Circa. I've got 10 entries in my name, DD3's Revenge. And then my girlfriend has signed. It hasn't yet, but will sign up for 10 entries before Saturday. So between my girlfriend and I, we'll have 20 entries.
Does your girlfriend watch football? Is she an avid football fan at all?
Not so much. Last couple of years, we've been together for a couple of years now. So last couple of years, she's exponentially increased her football watching. And Survivor has kind of gotten in. How can you love somebody and have that other person love Survivor this much and you have it not rub off on you, right?
Bingo.
So yeah, exactly. So
hey, and if we're looking to zig when others are zagging, we'll not be afraid to solicit her opinion here or there on a football game. All right.
Absolutely.
This game, I thought I was going to play this game in the Survivor pool. I most certainly am not. The Arizona Cardinals at the New Orleans Saints. I believe in the new head football coach in New Orleans, Kellen Moore, a lot, and it scares me a little bit. I don't really know what to expect with that quarterback, Rattler. I know you think highly of the Cardinals and their head football coach, and I do like the Cardinals a lot. I think potentially Harrison breaks out a little bit. Love McBride. I think they're potentially on both sides of the ball. I think they're pretty well-rounded, all 3 units here. But a road game, I don't pay too much attention, right? It's that, West Coast team coming east, couple hours, it's Central Time. To me, it scares me despite kind of liking the Cardinals money line in the football game. Go ahead.
I'll say this. Remember I said I wrote that article for Survivor Atlas and I did the profile of the teams who lose in week 1 as big favorites the last couple of years. There wasn't much of a difference at all between home and away. I'm not afraid of the fact that the Cardinals are an away team here. Yes, New Orleans is a tough place to play. It is a factor. It is worth considering, but it's built into the line already, that home field advantage for the Saints. I just think the Cardinals are a much better team than the Saints. I think this is one of those don't overthink it moves. Spencer Rattler, the Saints are 0-7 in games that he plays, and 5 of them were blowouts. Let me read you some scores here, Jason. 51-27, Spencer Rattler loses. 33-10, 26-8, 34-0, 25-10. 27-19, and then there was one close game, 20-19. This guy hasn't sniffed a win. I guess he sniffed one win and didn't get it. He's gotten blown out in every game he plays. If there's a game on the week 1 schedule that is a complete freaking annihilation blowout, and you say to yourself, how did I not see that one coming? It's this game.
I love it.
It's this game. And by the way, ironically, this game last season was the Saints. This seems like forever ago. Remember the Saints destroyed the Panthers in week 1 last year? They won by like 40 points.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're saying, shit, how did I not see that coming? I should have taken the Saints in Survivor. I think this could be that game. Like, I would not be shocked at all if the Cardinals won by 20 points. However, the Cardinals do have a really nice spot. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this point because I have to keep my cards a little close to my vest here. Okay? So you guys got to do your own research. But I'm going to say this. The Cardinals, I'll just put it this way, lightly, gently. The Cardinals have a very, very pivotal week 5 game in terms of your Survivor grid and the chain reaction if you don't use the Cardinals there. Very important game, week 5 against the Panthers. And if you take the Cardinals off the board, You're not able to use them week 5. And I think that has ramifications, if you see what I'm saying, for the rest of your grid. So just something to be aware of. I don't see a spot after week 6 to use the Cardinals.
Really interesting point about the home road stuff. And certainly if this game was being contested in the great state of Arizona, it'd probably be a double-digit favorite there. Certainly they may be the biggest favorite on the board. So maybe, getting them in a spot where others may not love them. Yeah, I hear you, man. You move the needle with me a little bit there with that talk.
Let me throw one more thing out there. Spencer Rattler, young quarterback. Cardinals, everything that I've been reading in training camp, they're running a lot of exotic packages. 3 outside linebacker packages, 3 safety packages. Spencer Rattler, who isn't a good quarterback, is going to be seeing a lot of things he's never seen before. And so that makes me like the Cardinals a little more too.
Josh Sweat coming around the edge too should be nice. So, all right, we move on. 1 o'clock game. I could talk an hour with you on all these games. Pittsburgh Steelers at the New York Jets. Everybody loves Pittsburgh. I'll start and say that, right? And we'll talk about that. I've seen this line move at 2.5, right? I saw it at 3, seeing it move a little bit. The noteworthy injury, starting right guard Elijah Vera Tucker suffered season-ending torn tricep during Tuesday's practice.
Tough.
That really made me maybe love Pittsburgh as much as everyone else. That one injury did move the needle for me. Gosh, man, my identical twin, John, John and I like Justin Fields and Daniel Jones more than everybody else in the whole United States combined. So what I'll say is this Jets game to me feels a little bit like the Cowboys, right? If the Jets were to if the Cowboys win at Philly or the Jets win hosting Pittsburgh, it's going to be one of those galvanizing, emotional, sort of fluky situations.
Oh, yeah.
I like Pittsburgh here. Your thoughts?
I like Pittsburgh quite a bit, about as much as I like Jacksonville. I'll put it that way. I'm glad you brought up the injury news. Sauce Gardner limited practice today with a calf. That's obviously a huge one to keep an eye on as well. But that other injury that you mentioned, I think the trenches are going to be important to keep an eye on. I think the Steelers have a big advantage in the trenches. That defense might be one of the best defenses in the NFL. I do think that's a huge mismatch. The other mismatch here is coaching, Jason. You've got Aaron Glenn. I don't want to disparage the guy, but he's going to be coaching a game for the first time in his career. He's only got 10 years of coaching experience in any position, period, going up against Mike Tomlin, who not only we know Mike Tomlin's a good coach, but he's a good week 1 coach, especially. He's 4-1 straight up in his last 5 week 1 games. You look at his career week 1 record. Mike Tomlin always has his guys ready. So massive coaching mismatch, in my opinion. Not just at the head coach position. I mean, special teams, the Steelers have one of the best special teams coaches in the NFL, Danny Smith. The Jets are expected to be one of the worst special teams units in the league. And that matters, right? Hey, Tony, what are you doing talking about special teams on a Survivor show? Well, in a game that's lined at, 38 points, 3-point point spread, a kick return, a punt return, a muffed punt, that could easily decide this game. And I like the Steelers here in this spot. I really do. I know that they're on the road. That's going to scare a couple people off them. And I like that it's going to scare a couple people off them because I want to use the Steelers. Spots to use the Steelers moving forward. This is a really good one, Jason. Look at this. Week 6, Steelers are off a bye, well rested. They're playing Cleveland, who's playing in its 3rd straight road game and coming back from London. Is there a bigger rest-tired advantage there for that one? So a wonderful spot to use the Steelers week 6. That's a reason not to use the Steelers in this spot, but I do think they're a great survivor pool pick this week. You also got week 9 against Indy. And then late in the season, that tricky week 17, which I brought up earlier, the Steelers play the Browns as well. So there are a lot of good reasons to save the Steelers and not use them here in this spot.
I agree. Do you expect the Jets defense to have the chance to play the game of their life with Aaron Rodgers as the opposing quarterback?
And these guys saw each other in practice every day, right? So Aaron Rodgers knows their weaknesses. They know his weaknesses. I don't know what to expect from the Jets defense. So many of those guys, I mentioned Sauce Gardner. He's a great example. Underperformed last year. Did they underperform because they gave up on the season? Screw it, we're done. Or did they regress? I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to be fascinated to see how well this team plays on offense and defense week 1.
Final 1 o'clock game. New York Giants at Washington Commanders. So when the NFL schedule was first released, and I knew I was going to want to do more survivors, regardless of doing this show. I knew I was going to want to enter more survivor entries. This was the game for me that stood out. The Commanders was the team I liked the most in the survivor because I just ultimately thought Giants, one of the worst teams last year, whatever that quarterback situation is. I stand here today wanting no piece of the Commanders. That Giants defensive front, I think, is absolutely nasty. And in an odd way, I believe in all three quarterbacks in that quarterback room to be able to do enough. I think I like the 6 points with the Giants. This is not one of the games I'm looking at in Survivor for my 4. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the Giants with the points as well. They played the Commanders really tough last year, even though they were a miserable team. 2 one-score games. 21-18, 27-22 in weeks 2 and 9. I like your point about the Giants' defensive front. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, Bobby Okereke, up against an offensive line for Washington that Pro Football Focus graded them the 19th best offensive line with Sam Cosmi, who's now out and isn't going to play in this game. So there's an argument that Washington has a bottom 10 offensive line against this really good Giants front. The Giants played Washington really tough last year. I think that's a dicey one. I want nothing to do with Washington week 1.
I love it.
Nothing. Let's give a little shout out. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, talk to me.
I was going to say, let's give a little shout out to Race Oracle here. We love Race Oracle on this show, another one of our awesome sponsors.
Attention racing fans. If you want an edge at the track, you need Race Oracle. This subscription service uses advanced AI modeling built on over 200,000 historical races, crunching hundreds of data points from weather and track conditions to jockey history and speed ratings. Race Oracle gives you proprietary win percentages, Kelly betting strategies, and live odds tracking, covering every race in North America plus the UK and Ireland, so you can bet around the clock with confidence. Don't guess, predict smarter. Subscribe today and start betting with data, not luck. I
could listen to Jason Anik ad reads all day long. You're so good at that, man. You're so good at that.
I don't like listening to my own voice, but shout out the people at Race Oracle. And I used to be somewhat of a junkie. I shouldn't say junkie because I always gamble within my means, but I love betting on horse racing. And so this partnership with Race Oracle has got me juiced. And one of the things that you brought up just quickly, we're going to talk football, but one of the things about Race Oracle is like they can, forgive me, we don't have a screenshot, but you can sort of set your own units, if you will. Like they help you sort of manage your bankroll, if you will, which for me, for horse racing is what I need because I tend to be all over the show there. So hit up raceoracle.com.
Absolutely. Is it ironic here that we're going from the Race Oracle promo to talk about the Broncos? Did we unintentionally do this? That's perfect.
And Tony Farmer's brain is wired differently. He said on the documentary for Survivor, right? He said, I'm gonna win this thing at one point. This is my guy Tony saying this. I'm gonna win this thing at one point. So I want a camera crew like following me around to witness one of the best days of my life. I'm paraphrasing, but Tony's gonna win this thing. I like the way your brain is wired. So Tennessee Titans at Denver Broncos. We saw Mr. Stewart's tweet earlier tonight. Broncos have been chalk. Gosh, I love Sean Payton to beat a rookie quarterback here. I do see some future value with the Broncos on the board. It's going to be hard for me not to punch a ticket for 5,280, which is that 5,280 miles above sea level. I like Denver here, and I think they'll get one of my 4 entries.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be, without a doubt, without a inkling of a doubt, the highest selected game in Circa Survivor. It's the highest line game right up there with Philadelphia, and they don't have the holiday implications. So, yeah, I'm glad we just put that up on the screen. This is Survivor Atlas. They came out with this yesterday. You got to go over to survivoratlas.com. They came out with this yesterday. These are their projections. By the way, these are going to change throughout the week. They're going to update them. But 32% of people are going to be on Denver. Jason, I think the number could actually be higher. I would not be shocked at all to see 36, 37%. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. There is a lot to like here. You talked about Sean Payton against the rookie quarterback making his first start against that defense.
Right.
One of the best defenses in the NFL in elevation. That's a tough spot for a rookie quarterback to be. Could it be tougher? I mean, how much tougher can you get than that? I guess if it was also a primetime game under the lights on Monday night, maybe. I don't know. Like, this is a really, really tough spot here. I will say this, if you want some arguments to be a little weary of the Titans, 2 of the Broncos starters on defense are going to be on pitch counts because they're both coming off of, major surgeries, including Dre Greenlaw. I do think the Titans are a lot more feisty than people think. Like, they weren't as bad as their record showed last season. Their quarterback play was really bad last year.
Right.
That's why they stunk. The rest of their team was kind of average. And so you've got this team that, in my opinion, was like a quarterback away from being an average team. And now they've got a quarterback who might be good or bad. We don't know yet. So there is an argument to be made that these Titans are way, way better than people think. I think they could be feistier than people think on week 1, but there's just too much there. I got to go Broncos. I got to have at least a couple entries here on the Broncos.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly say, right, part of my logic with the Bengals is I believe they want to win week 1 desperately. I know all these teams do, but I believe Denver, after going 0-2 last year, I think they got back 4-4, whatever. It certainly was a good season, but we talk about April in baseball or whatever it may be, but I think there's certain organizations that are going to prioritize a W in week 1 more than some others. And I'm sort of willing to zig when everyone's zigging, perhaps, in this spot.
Well said. Well said. Denver in the future. They've got Indy next week, which could be an interesting spot for them. Jets, Giants, Raiders twice, and Jags later in the season. So it'd be fascinating to see how many people pull the trigger on Denver week 1 with those spots on the board.
And one thing I just want to say real quickly before we get into these games, or just ask you, right? For those that have multiple entries, some guys will do sort of all their entries on one team, or, let's say you got 10 entries, you might do 8 on one team and then sprinkle a couple others. Do you think a lot of guys or a lot of people that have multiple entries spray it across the board more, or isolate a lot of their entries on one team each week?
It's a great question. A little bit of both. I think human nature is to be more conservative and spread it out. Nobody wants to spend $10,000 on Circa Survivor and go out week 1, right?
Right.
And the easiest like path from point A to point B to make that happen is by putting them all on one team, and then quarterback gets hurt, something crazy happens, right? So human nature is I need to spread things out week 1. I think more people do that, but there's a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people. NFL wise guys last year, all 10 on the same team, through, week 10 and beyond. They're the most well-known case of it, but a lot of people do it. And it's common to see people lose all 10. It'll happen. Week 1, I promise you, there will be 20, 30, maybe more people who lose all 10 entries on the same team in week 1. It will absolutely happen. So yeah, it just depends on your threshold for risk there. As we mentioned, you made it all the way to week 18 last season. This was covered in the documentary. Heartbreaking loss with the Packers.
A part they edited out, though, was saying I was probably the biggest loser in Circa history because I didn't hedge at all. I had nothing. I just had all my chips in. All I cared about was the blue jacket. I wanted to win the contest. Like, to me, that's worth more. I wanted to win the contest.
I'm not sure if I have more respect for what you did or how you're talking about it now. Either way, you're the fucking man, excuse my language, and you're due.
Such a great clip from last week. Such a great clip.
Unbelievable. Love me some House. I got to find him on Instagram, by the way. House, send me your Instagram handle because I should have tagged you. I put that out earlier, but that was incredible. So as we move on to San Francisco versus Seattle, or San Francisco at Seattle, excuse me. It's interesting. When I was on Odd Shark with you last year, with you and Andrew Avery, Ninja, you guys are both 49ers fans. And I told all my friends as I would talk about the NFL, I'm like, these guys are 49ers fans and they're super sharp. They're just always a week ahead on everything. So I certainly trust you when it comes to your own team, the 49ers. You've talked to me about how banged up they are. Sam Darnold, I don't know if I could justify that. You can be sure I've done a bunch of maps. Sam Darnold didn't find any map for me anywhere because he is not going to take any of my money this season. You can be sure. I like some of what Seattle's doing. I do believe in your 49ers long-term this season. Any thoughts on this game week 1?
The line movement has been fascinating at Circa the last couple of days. It was at Niners 2-point favorites. It goes down to 1.5. And I tweeted this out on our account. It went down to 1.5 on good news for the 49ers that Juwan Jennings was back from his calf/contract holdout. Dominic Pooney, their second best offensive lineman, back for the 49ers. And I put a little tweet out. I said, interesting. It went from 2 to 1.5 on good news for the 49ers. And guess what? It's back up to 2.5 now. Juiced at -120, suggesting it could go to 3 at Circa. So reading between the lines here, it appears that some people with deep pockets really, really liked that 49ers 1.5 number, maybe even a head fake situation going on. I'm not sure exactly what went down there, but fascinating line movement here. Some people out there really like the 49ers. I get it, especially on that news with those two guys back, because as we talked about, the Niners are incredibly thin. I think there's an argument, Jason, to be made that Mike Macdonald, Seattle's head coach, is a little bit of Brock Purdy's kryptonite. He had that game when McDonald was the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, where Purdy threw 4 interceptions against the Ravens on Christmas. The last game that Purdy played against Seattle, he only threw for 159 yards. I don't know how comfortable Brock Purdy is against the Mike McDonald defense. That's a tough place to play on the road. Niners have some good spots later this year. This is a great comment here from Twitter. So there may be more 49er fans in the stadium than Seattle fans, which is a big deal in that stadium, right? Regarded as one of the louder stadiums in the NFL. Ticket data, by the way, fascinating how they do this with cookies or however the heck they pull this off, right? But ticket data is suggesting there might be more San Francisco fans in Seattle for that one. Fascinating. But games the Niners have real quick moving forward. They play the Cardinals twice, the Jags, the Giants, the Panthers, the Titans, Indy, and Cleveland. So tons of future value here for the 49ers moving forward.
This may be an intangible comment. It most certainly is, but I like Brock Purdy with this contract, maybe taking a little bit of an easier deep breath, maybe settling down that heart rate a little bit. And I also think Kyle Shanahan is probably still livid about everything that happened last year. And I bet he kind of wants this one, right? So for me, and Sam Darnold walked through that door in San Francisco, so he probably knows a little bit about him. I certainly didn't look at how the Vikings and 49ers match up when Darnold was there, but I like San Francisco a lot in this spot, I guess I'll say, as we get through this conversation. So to me, that may be a team I'm considering in the Survivor Millions, one game against the spread, I'll say there. Okay.
And you got to like the Niners next week at the Saints, right? That's a dream spot. Now, especially if I'm right on this and Seattle's going to be friskier than people think, and let's say Seattle were to beat the 49ers, how about an 0-1 49er team going into New Orleans week 2?
Bingo.
That'd be very, very, very popular choice in survivor pools for sure.
Moving on to another game that I would be surprised if we have any plays on. I know I won't in Survivor. Detroit Lions at the Green Bay Packers, right? And so I feel like these two teams, and the Micah Parsons thing definitely shook this up, but I feel like being able to predict these two teams in particular, I feel like is going to go a long way for me this season in my bank account and even in Survivor. I liked the Packers in this spot to begin with. So adding Micah Parsons, I certainly like them more. And I really do believe, I don't really believe in Jared Goff in big spots. I like Dan Campbell's ability to have that culture sort of remain there. But from an X's and O's standpoint, losing Ben Johnson, losing Aaron Glenn on the defensive side, even Terrell Williams, who's now calling the defense for the New England Patriots, I think I've talked to a lot of people that are on really high on Detroit this year, but I believe they take a little bit of a step back. So I guess for me, I'm a little bit bullish on the Packers this season, a little bit bearish on the Lions, not touching it in Survivor. Your thoughts on this ball game, Tom?
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this game, Jason. It was sort of an immediate look at the schedule, and I'm like, no, I want nothing to do with this. These are two evenly matched teams. I honestly don't feel like I have a great read on the Lions. I expect them to take a step back because, like you said, they've lost both their coordinators. No offensive coordinator, no defensive coordinator. Remember what happened to the Eagles when they lost both of their coordinators? Like, that could be trouble for the Lions this season. But I will say this. There is an interesting Survivor angle for this game, and it's this. The Lions and Packers play on Thanksgiving. So this is almost a reconnaissance mission for me. I want to see how these two teams play week 1. Let me throw this out there. If all of a sudden Detroit, I don't think this is going to happen, but let's play a game here. Detroit wins this game by 30 points week 1. You think that doesn't change your Survivor grid? All of a sudden, Detroit wins in Lambeau by 30 points. Now, I feel a lot better about Detroit in Detroit on Thanksgiving against that Packers team. So how these two teams look week 1 is going to go a long way to determining whether you might be able to cozy up to one of these two teams on Thanksgiving Day.
It's a great point. And I remember saying to you, I'm not sure if it was on air or off, but actually, as I looked ahead and mapped things out, that I actually, because I'm looking to fade Detroit a little bit, I'll obviously see how they play. But I was actually looking at the Packers at Detroit because I actually believe the Packers could be playing great football at that time and Detroit could be fumbling. So we'll see. I think a lot of what's going on between the ears of Jared Goff will dictate how well this team plays. All right, final four.
Jason, real quick. I know we got to get through these last couple games.
Good.
So we've been doing this show. This show's been existing for 2 years. This is an all-time high for me. I see the viewership in the corner. So it's exciting.
I love it. Appreciate
the Jason Anik bump right here.
No.
So appreciate you. I do want to remind people, like, subscribe, retweet, thumbs up, spread the word. We're also on Spotify. We're also on Apple Podcasts. So subscribe on there as well. Thank you.
And you can be sure we'll give you a follow back. And anyone in Vegas, please come to Stadium Swim. I'll drop my credit card down if you want some cocktails. I'm not afraid of that. I'm sure Derek and the guys at Circa wouldn't mind either. So come through and say hi. We met some guy, Derbify. Shout out Derbify, by the way. He won the million pick 5 games against the spread contest. Hopefully he can come through next Wednesday at 10:30. Love to have some cocktails.
Oh, look who just popped up in the chat. Good luck this season from NFL Wise Guys. Hopefully you were watching a couple minutes ago. We gave you guys a shout out. Everybody's going to be looking to see what you guys do this year. I suspect you're going to have all 10 entries on one team, and I'm very curious what that team is moving forward.
Well, and this will be the final time I bring this up. I'm getting excited here, right? This will be the third and final time, 3 times the charm, about being your girlfriend. But I hope to meet your girlfriend during this season so I can find my way into the Tony Farmer inner circle. I want to be in the war room with Tony Farmer for this Survivor season. Either way, the entry that's going to win is the champ entry, which people are going to join us on. Derbify, there you are, Derbify. Appreciate you. Good luck to you as well, sir. Final 4:00 game, Texans at Rams. A layoff for me. I absolutely love the Rams. I'm a broken record. I really believe they had a great chance to beat the Eagles last season in the postseason if it hadn't been in the snow. Had they won that game, they would have hosted the NFC Championship game. I like the Rams. I think Stafford's back is going to be okay, but I think the Texans are going to have something to prove after sort of a subpar second year last year for CJ Stroud. Your thoughts on this one?
A little bit of a mismatch here. Rams defensive line against the Texans offensive line. Remember, this Rams defense had 16 sacks in its last 2 games last season versus playoff teams, including the Eagles, who have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You're now going up against that Texans offensive line, which isn't that great. Rams do have a ton of future value moving forward this season. They play the Saints, they play the Titans, they play Indy, Jacksonville, Carolina, and Arizona twice. So I don't know that you want to use the Rams here, but I will say this. This is a good spot, I think, to be on an island. If you like the Rams in this matchup, not a lot of people are going to be on them. You do have the whole Stafford angle. He gets hurt week 2. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in. We know Devontae Adams doesn't like playing with Jimmy Garoppolo. So you're going to be feeling real good if you get by with the Rams in week 1, and then Stafford has a back injury week 3 or 4. There is some coaching familiarity I think people need to be aware of. The Texans offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, he was on the Rams staff last season. DeMeco Ryans owned Sean McVay when he was the defensive coordinator in San Francisco, going up against Sean McVay in those NFC West battles. So the coaching familiarity works against you if you like the Rams here. But I'll just say this, interesting spot to use the Rams because not a lot of people will be on them. Great point. Moving on to the night game, Sunday night. Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. Anyone, I always say, right, in terms of handicapping mixed martial arts, right? I'll find you a high-level UFC fighter who likes one fighter. Appreciate you, poker player, 96.79. And I'll find you a UFC fighter, on the other side. So this particular game, I believe the Ravens roster is superior, right? They're on the right. Certainly the Bills, if the Ravens were home, they'd probably be designated as a favorite. They're a designated favorite on the road. There's our guy, Bob Renfro. Is this Bob Renfro's first appearance an hour and 18 minutes in? This comment's been waiting for a little while. I think he made it at the beginning. So yeah, I just brought it in now. Mike Jones, Bob Renfro's a VIP, so just know Mike Jones in the back. Bob Renfro, move him up to the VIP list. But anyway, anyone who wants to give me a sharp handicap on Ravens, Bills, go ahead. Can't wait to watch it. I won't have a penny on anything in this game. Go ahead, Tony. Yeah, Survivor implications, absolutely not. It's going to be a great game for an NFL fan to watch. You got the 2 former MVPs, of course, going up against each other. I do like the Ravens plus 1.5. It was interesting. Circa had, I think, the Ravens as the favorite. And other books had him. Yeah, so that tells you something for sure. Yep. I think the Bills secondary is going to be the weakest unit on the field, and so that makes me lean a little bit more toward the Ravens here. I like the Ravens quite a bit for a week 1 bet. Want nothing to do with it for survivor pool purposes. Both teams have too much future value. Bingo. Got to hold on to both of these teams. Yeah. And the Monday night game, wildly unpredictable. If you're asking me, Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears. JJ McCarthy at Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson making his head coaching debut. Yeah, I mean, I almost want to ask you who you like in this game. I didn't give it a sniff from Survivor. And if you think I want to hold anything for Survivor till Monday night, I'm 47 years old. I don't need that stress waiting for Monday night. So I want nothing to do with this. I probably lean Bears and Ben Johnson's debut. What do you think of this game? Yeah, Bears plus 1.5 point favorites. I like the Bears teased up to 7.5 in a game like this. I think JJ McCarthy is going to be the story of this game because if you take out the quarterback position, the Vikings honestly have like a top 5 NFL roster if you take the quarterback position out, and they're deep from top to bottom. So it's just going to come down to how prepared this guy is. We talked earlier in the show, Cam Ward, that's such a tough spot going to elevation, first NFL game in Denver. Well, how is playing in Chicago on Monday Night Football as your first NFL start? That's a tough spot too, here, right? So I think it's going to come down to these quarterbacks. Is JJ ready in that first spot? Has Caleb and Ben Johnson been able to get on the same page and kind of that whole offense gel, so to speak? I do think the Vikings defense is a lot better than Chicago's offense. This is going to be another fun one to watch. I don't think there's going to be any Survivor implications for me on this one.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we've all survived by Sunday night and we can just enjoy watching the football game. So our entry in Survivor Sweat, joint entry called Champ. How about that? Nobody used Champ before? Are you telling me CHAMP was available? not Champ 1, 2, 3. We'll take Champ. We'll try and take it to the top. But we have made our selection, if I'm not mistaken, Tony Farmer, for our entry. So let the people know, unless I'm mistaken.
No, you're not mistaken. And this is kind of cool, actually, because we talk about the marketplace and you go on, and if you don't have control of the entry, you're just along for the ride. And you don't know what someone is going to necessarily pick the next week. This is an opportunity for you guys later in the season, when this entry is hopefully available, if we make it, for Survivor Sweat, to jump on. And we'll tell you each week what we're going to go with, unless there's some crazy injury or something like that. So we're going to start that tradition now. We're going with the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday. It's a chalky selection. If you're just tuning in, earlier on in the show is the first game that we covered. If you want to see why we like the Eagles in this spot, I got to be honest, Jason, if I'm being really, really honest here, I would be a little embarrassed if our week 1 pick lost. What a bummer. We have this whole plan. We hope to sell pieces of this entry as the season goes along. So I am playing this a little differently. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm playing it a little conservatively. I want this entry to last as long as possible, which is why I think, and I think we're on the same page with this, Philly's the move here for this joint entry.
And what I will say, right, it's a joint entry, which I love. And my other Survivor entries are joint entries as well. My brother John and you might like Philadelphia more than any team all week, right? And they happen to play on Thursday night. For me, it's almost like a tooth fairy, yellow brick road randomness where I just feel like Dallas I just feel like the Micah Parsons exit may be what sort of shakes up the universe. But I like the Eagles. I'm with you on this game, but I don't think I'm going to be as shocked as you or my brother if this game ends up sort of biting us.
That's fair. Jason, I want to give you a little insight into my brain right now. So you just said Thursday night. In my brain, I wanted to correct you in my brain and said, actually, that's tomorrow night. And then I went, actually, that's tomorrow night. We got football tomorrow night, buddy. We got football tomorrow night. The NFL season is here, man. Let's go.
It's insane, right? And you'll know, because you're a little younger than me, as you get older, it just gets faster and faster. This day comes quicker. But the day I met you at oddshark.com doing the huddle, you talked about week 1 NFL Sunday being your favorite day of the year. And me too. And when I did this show, I didn't know if I could be a hockey handicappers. We got college football guys, right? You know, Tony and I, we don't, he doesn't watch MMA, right? I might not watch all the things he watches, but you can be sure, like, this is king for us. We're going to be here for you every Wednesday night trying to break it down. And in terms of how much information Tony's going to disclose, I'm an open book, all right? I want to win this thing with Champ. But Tony, as we get further along, may hold things a little bit closer to the vest, but it's my job to pull as much as I can out of him for you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow on Spotify. Hit that like button if you're watching. Luck, week 1.
Peace.